over from Patrick Chapin's winning block constructed list, Fleece Mane Lion, 4X in the list, Elvish Mystic, Sylvan Caryatid, Corsair Crewfix, 4 copies of Siege Rhino. The removal and utility suite, 2 Murderous Cut, 2 Abzan Charms, a Banishing Light, 4 Heroes Downfall, 4 Sora, and 3 Nissa. So just good creatures, some good Planeswalkers, good removal, trying to be as flexible as possible week 1.
And this is something I really expect to see this weekend, is a lot of players playing decks that started 4 Sylvan Caryatid, 4 Corsair of Crewfix, some fetch lands, and 2 other colors.
Exactly. It is hard to go wrong with Siege Rhino.
That guy's a beating.
It's hard. I can't imagine someone saying, after they lost a match, you know, I lost because I drew too many Siege Rhinos, unless they just can't cast them, assuming they're able to cast them.
Yeah, I like it because he's that style of card that, you know, Ravenous Baloth, Obstinate Baloth, Luxodon, Hierarch, that we see always be good, but because he deals 3, he's good in every matchup.
Yeah, those cards that you alluded to are not good against control decks typically, but Siege Rhino is totally fine there too.
Temple of Maladies for each player on turn 1. Brian will start with a Sylvan Caryatid on turn 2. Yeah, that's the first play. Todd, you see here, playing a Tri-land, actually. That's Opulent Palace, the Sultai Tri-land. And Brian's just going to be ramping for a bit. Elvish Mystic joins in. Now Todd's showing his Delve side. Turn 2 is Satyr Wayfinder, has a Temple and 2 Forests.
Pretty sweet that we get to watch Todd in action after discussing this deck in theory just 5 seconds ago.
Yeah, this wasn't planned.
This just sort of happened.
All right, Todd leaves the card on top. Now, he's not all in on this, right? There's no Night Howlers in the deck. This is a little more fair than I think what we were discussing. He's just playing Sidisi basically on the back of him believing it's just a good card.
Right, and his payouts here are the Murderous Cuts and the Necropolis Fiend.
Corsair of Crewfix was the play for Brian. So you see the trio kind of here. Elvish Mystic, Sylvan Caryatid, Corsair of Crewfix on Brian's side. Hard to go wrong with that cast of fellows.
I imagine this matchup is not very good for Brian, although we are sort of figuring this out as we go. But they are playing the game at a very similar pace. But what Todd is doing is so much more powerful than what Brian's doing.
Typically, these graveyard-style decks, when I've played them in the past, they tend to be very good against fair strategies. You know, if your opponent's playing mid-range, you play unfair by casting cards out of your yard. You're doing the same thing, but you'll never run out of resources.
Right.
Brian just with another land, but you see Siege Rhino waiting on top of his deck. One thing that I'm noticing in particular about these 2 decks is there's a lot of setup here.
Well, Brian's setup is kind of on the mana base end. Todd's is also on the mana base end, but includes getting this graveyard stuff online. But if Brian's not putting any pressure on him, Todd's got a lot of time to just set up shop.
Yeah, both players on turn 5, no one's really done anything yet, you know? They're all just been setting up. Todd makes the first aggressive move. This is Sidisi Brood Tyrant. Looks like Brian at the ready with a kill spell. He'll give it a Murderous Cut here. Goes to the graveyard. So Sidisi, this is a card I'm pretty excited about. When Sidisi enters the battlefield or attacks, you mill yourself for 3. And whenever 1 or more creature cards are milled or put in your graveyard from library, you get a 2/2 black zombie.
And that's why Brian killed the Sidisi with the trigger on the stack, though perhaps just allowed Todd to deploy his Necropolis Fiend that he otherwise would not have been able to.
Yeah, kills it, and Todd delves away his whole graveyard to make Necropolis Fiend. Necropolis Fiend is a card I have high expectations for. Maybe too much, but this guy's the real deal. 4/5 for 9, putting 9 in quotes. He wants to eat the entire graveyard on him by himself. You see, after you cast him with Delve, he can exile X cards to shrink a creature by that much as well. Brian will just go for some value, though. He's going to play Siege Rhino, steal 3 life from Todd, and then we'll go ahead and Hero's Downfall away the Necropolis Fiend.
And Siege Rhino, again, it's hard for it to be bad, but this is one of the matchups where it's going to be at its weakest, most likely, because Todd's not interested in really playing that much on the ground or playing this, damage race game. He's trying to overpower Brian completely.
Well, Siege Rhino is one of those, the definition of fair, right? It's when you play him, what you see is what you get. You get a 4/5, you get a drain for 3, and that's about it. Todd's cards, like Necropolis Fiend or Sidisi, they continue to get him value as they stay on the battlefield.
Yeah.
They have a lot more of, I think, a high upside to them, whereas Siege Rhino, you know about how good Siege Rhino is always going to be.
It's just a thing.
Yeah. It's got very good numbers. That's upside. It's big for its mana cost. It has a great under the battlefield ability. Todd plays Courser of Kruphix this turn. He sees another Necropolis Fiend on top of his deck, and Siege Rhino crashes.
Sort of an R&D joke. Oh, what deck are you playing? I'm playing Abzan Rates with Siege Rhino, because Siege Rhino is a really good rate. That's what... What's your key synergy? What's the key synergies of your deck?
Yeah.
Rates.
Rates.
Really good rates.
Yes. What was it? Green-white from last season.
Green-white rates?
Rates, yeah. I was like, well, I'm playing a 3/3 for 2, 4/4 for 3, a 5/5 for 4.
Yeah, Selesnya rates.
That deck had really good rates. All right.
It did.
Todd draws Necropolis Fiend. Can he get a free forest off the top? That puts him up to 12. He's under a fair amount of pressure. He also knows that Brian is going to draw next turn a Sorin Solemn Visitor. That is a 4 of in his deck. I've not seen the card in Constructed yet. I've got a chance to play one at the pre-release, and I will say that guy is very good.
I imagine so. Another Abzan rate card.
Absolutely.
Good rates.
Guys, guy gains a ton of life. You see the second Planeswalker waiting on top. That's Nissa Worldwaker. Will Todd be able to deal with all these Planeswalkers? He didn't make a threat last turn. It looks like he's sitting back on Murderous Cut, Hero's Downfall. So he has plenty of removal. Siege Rhino going to attack. And Todd's got to decide if he Murderous Cuts here, then he's not going to be able to downfall the Sorin.
But there isn't that much I mean, he can just untap and downfall the Sorin just as easily. There's no immediate pressure to be doing that.
He's going to Murderous Cut away the Rhino. He actually delves away his Necropolis Fiend to do that.
I suppose Todd here is pretty mana tight and wants to be able to Hero's Downfall here on Brian's turn, and then untap and do whatever he wants to do.
So Brian's going to make the same play here. He's going to make the Sorin Solemn Visitor, and sniffing out a removal spell. First of all, Todd delving there has got to be very suspicious. He's just going to make a Vampire right away.
Because Todd's deck can always use the graveyard, you know? Necropolis Fiend is quite the tax.
And Todd, despite leaving up Hero's Downfall, opts not to use it there, saving it for the Nissa Worldwaker. He's going to play Polluted Delta that he drew off the top. Satyr Wayfinder waits for him. That's Mayor. We'll see whether he wants to keep that card there. I'm not positive he will. He has the option to shuffle it away with Polluted Delta.
He would have to have a lot of use for his graveyard at this point to want to keep a Satyr Wayfinder. Which I guess is not impossible, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if he had a card, he does have Necropolis Fiend, and that certainly will let him play it on the cheap, but I don't know how constrained his mana is at this point in the game. He may just not need that discount, or rather have another card.
Right.
And it looks like that's what's going to happen. He's just going to crack a fetch land here. Get a new look at the top of his deck. He has played a land for the turn, so if he finds a land here, he won't be able to play it.
And another card we alluded to earlier, maybe getting some burn here, are the Souls from N15. Todd does have a Soul of Innistrad in his deck.
Yeah. Necropolis Fiend number 2 on Todd's side, taps out for it and passes. There is a Banishing Light. That's the last card in Brian's hand. He's going to draw Nissa Worldwaker for the turn. And has a fetch land on top of the deck. Windswept Heath. He too gets to play the Courser fetch land game. Gaining 1 shows Elvish Mystic on the top of the deck. That's why these fetch lands are just so good. You can control your draws.
Yeah,
fix your mana.
Fetches and Coursers. This is gonna be a big deal. This is a thing.
You're gonna gotta get used to it.
Yep.
It's gonna start with the Banishing Light. It's gonna take care of Necropolis Fiend. Now, does Todd have any cards to get a Banishing Light off the board?
Todd does not appear so. He does not.
So that guy is gone. Brian's going to now crack the fetch land. He just gets a shuffle here. By cracking the land here, he can hit with the 4/4 that he's going to make as well. You see that Nissa Worldwaker on the battlefield. And Fleecemane Lion is the next draw for Brian.
A much better draw than Elvish Mystic would have been.
Yeah. So Caves of Koilos will become a 4/4. Sorin's going to give everything +1/+0 in lifelink. And remember, that's actually a persistent ability. That lasts all the way through Todd's turn. It's until Brian's next turn is how it reads. So this swing is for 8. Todd is at 13. It'll put him to 5 if he takes all the damage. Remember, though, the land tramples.
Curious that Todd did not downfall a few turns ago when it looked like that was his intent based on the information he had.
Yeah, I'm also interested in that play.
And now the Sorin that's still in play amounts to 2 more points.
Another hero's downfall waiting for Todd, so he's got opportunities here to get rid of things. I don't know if he can get rid of them fast enough. He's going to start by downfalling the Nissa. And I think that's why he didn't play it, is that he felt that he needed to save it for Nissa.
Sure.
But this does mean you're right. Sorin will get to make a second vampire. And Todd currently has no defense against flyers. 2 from a flyer this turn, and 4 from 2 flyers next turn. That's his whole life total.
And Fleece Main Lion's a concern here, too. I mean, Todd's got no answer to it on the table if it goes monstrous.
Yeah, Brian can cast it and monstrous it this turn. He has 6 lands in play, but also has a Caryatid and Elvish Mystic.
Todd's got plenty of chump blockers, but still another thing going on in the game that he needs to handle.
Right. Fleece Main Lion is cast. Immediately, Brian is going to monstrosity it. Todd's going to respond by murderous cutting the Fleece Main Lion. Decides that he just can't deal with that. And Todd's hands are pretty tied here, so Brian can put him to 4. Todd has no cards in hand. Brian can make a second flyer, and Todd will be forced to use that hero's downfall on a vampire token as opposed to using it on the Sorin.
Unless the top of Todd's deck is a land, then he can
gains a life.
And then maybe he has some way to clean this all up. Though I don't think he does, really. I don't think he has... I mean, maybe there's some set of running outs here, but
yeah.
not even Necropolis Fiend does anything because there'll be 2 flyers in play.
Yeah, Brian's going to plus the Sorin, actually, and swing the entire team. A more aggressive line, but I think one I like more. So he's going to take 2 trample, 3 in the air. Todd's going to go to 1. Yeah, it looks like he's going to go to 1. Brian's going to gain a whole slew of life points here. Brian gains 13. So yeah, the Elvish Mystic trades with the Wayfinder. Todd's Caryatid is binned. And I don't know if Hero's Downfall is going to be enough.
No, I don't think so either.
Draw.
Now with that token in play, uncontested, it's...
There's the land. Todd goes to 2.
In the future, we need to get a die on the land.
And that'll do it. Game 1 goes over to Brian Braun-Duin, getting the win at a healthy 46 life points.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's more than doubled up.
Does that carry over into the next game? Are you the
If you-
2-0
if
winner
you-
if you win at over 40? Well, sideboard time here.
Yeah.
Todd, I got on the left here 2 Thoughtseize, 2 Empty the Pit, 4 Drown in Sorrow, a Silence the Believers, another Rashasha, 2 Reclamation Sages, 2 Farika, God of Afflictions, and Despise. There's a lot to bring in here, potentially.
Yeah, so this is a mid-range mirror. So cards like Thoughtseize are never bad here, but because of the coursers, both players are playing off the top of their decks a lot. So Thoughtseize can be fine. Silence the Believers can be pretty good. That hits creatures, though, and I don't know how many creatures Brian actually has that are worth killing.
Well, I think that Todd probably just wants more discard because he just straight up lost to the Planeswalkers in Brian's deck. That was what beat him that game. So I think Thoughtseizes and the Despise are reasonable for Todd to bring in here. I think he just needs to shore that up.
Yeah, now what about Farika, God of Affliction? I would think if this is a grindy mid-range mirror, that card may have a lot of potential.
I think it could be good in this matchup, though Todd has a lot of things taxing his graveyard. But Farika might be better. I mean, 1/1 Death Touchers are very good against Siege Rhinos and Coursers and Fleece Main Lions and Nissa tokens. So Farika might be better than the other things that Todd has access to.
Yeah, you said that there are a lot of things wanting the cards in his graveyard, whether it's Murderous Cut or Necropolis Fiend or the Farika out of the sideboard.
Honestly, if you get, with the exception of the 4 copies of Drown Sorrows, I think everything in Todd's sideboard is reasonable to bring in this matchup. How exactly he wants to do it remains to be seen, but I like the discard spells. I think Empty the Pits could be fine here because the games will probably go on for a pretty long time. The 2 copies of Farika seem fine. 2 Reclamation Sages. He knows he's playing against Courser and Banishing Light. The Rakshasa doesn't seem ideal, but still.
Rakshasa Death Dealer. That's an interesting card if we can talk about it.
It's super efficient.
It is a very efficient 2-drop. It's a pretty big mana investment as well, though.
It wouldn't surprise me if it's more for matchups that are, you're playing against a pure control deck and you want individually impactful threats. Brian's deck is not really that kind of matchup. So I think Todd may not want to have the extra 1 come in. He may even want to cut these cards out of his deck, but the raw power on this card is so high that, maybe you're supposed to just have all 3 for this matchup.
We'll see that. On Brian's side, if the Planeswalkers are where he wants to be, he can bring in more of them. He has an Ajani Mentor of Heroes and 2 Elspeth Suns champions in his board, all of which could be pretty good. In addition to that, he could have some cheap removal. He does have 2 Suspension Field in his sideboard. That card is capable of taking down Sidisi, Courser of Krufix, Necropolis Fiend. Seems decent. Other things in his board, cards like he does have a pair of Drown in Sorrows. Those don't seem particularly strong here. They're fine.
I think that, Brian kind of has to be the aggressor in the matchup. So any removal spell he brings in, there's a big question mark about. Things like Banishing Light that can catch Todd's big payouts, like the Necropolis Fiend, those are totally fine. But I think the more narrow removal, Brian needs to leave in the sideboard.
Looking at how last game played out, it did seem that Brian was just able to run Todd out of threats. When I think about the black-green dredge deck from last season, what it had going on in its favor was that it got ridiculous plays as the game went on. Things like Bestow Night Howler for 10, Monstrous Nemesis Immortals for 2 mana. I didn't see Todd do anything of that level last game. It seemed like he was getting a lot of synergy, but at the end of the day, he was just kind of being a mid-range deck. He was casting some kill spells and some monsters.
Brian had some catch-all answers in the Banishing Lights and Heroes Downfall that just caught everything. So that was the big problem. Todd's payouts just weren't really payouts because Brian was able to handle them just as easily as he would any other creature.
All right, game is underway. Todd has the first play of a turn 2 Sylvan Caryatid, and that'll allow him to play Sidisi Brood Tyrant on turn 3. She's going to immediately mill 3. She does mill a Satyr Wayfinder. So that's going to go ahead and give him a 2/2 zombie in addition to the Sidisi.
This card is the real deal. No 2 ways about it. This card is super good.
Been a fan of this one. Heroes Downfall will take care of Sidisi.
Now the deck building cost on Sidisi is very high. You had to have this mill tons of creature strategy. It's 3 colors. It's not easy, but wow, is it good.
Yeah, here's another one. It'll mill one Rakshasa Death Dealer, so another zombie into play. And Brian, was under a lot of pressure thanks to these pair of Sidisis that Todd has played. And he is not playing any cards like End Hostilities, so sweeping this up could be problematic for Brian. He still is at 16, so he has some life points to work with. We see Abzan Charm in his hand, among other things. Second Hero's Downfall to Sidisi.
But there's a bit of a damage race playing going on from Todd's side here. These 2 Heroes Downfalls have cost Brian 2 points each time, and they've all generated a zombie, so.
We'll get to see the rest of Brian's hand, and he has some recovery. A pair of Siege Rhinos, a Murderous Cut, an Abzan Charm, and a Courser of Krufix.
The king of rates.
King of rates. He's going to get at least one of them. Will Todd leave? Todd's going to take 1 Rhino. Brian played Sandstepped Citadel as his land for that turn. That's the Abzan Tri-land. Comes to play tapped, it makes all 3 colors. Draw for Brian was Sorin, Solemn Visitor. So he doesn't have any more lands, but he's got a great rate going on in his hand.
Todd's hand at this point has to almost by definition be purely reactive. He could be casting threats, and his graveyard is so stocked up here that he could have been casting his delve cards as well.
His hand is a trio of Heroes Downfalls. So the first one will go at the Siege Rhino. Brian gained himself up to 12 with that, but now knocked down to 8. Will he be able to keep surviving? Sylvan Caryatid is the play from Todd. His hand is 2 Heroes Downfalls now. Brian's just going to have to slog through them. I'm not sure that he can do it in time. He is going to go ahead and play Courser of Krufix. And this whole time, Brian is paying life points for every card he's playing.
Yeah, you see his life total. It's it's a lot lower than you would expect if you were just sort of paying attention to this game half-heartedly, because so much of it has come off these Case of Coilers and Llanowar Wastes.
Courser of Crucifix was the play. He got a free land off it, gained a life, but then Todd burned a second Hero's Downfall. This one's on Courser, and he knocks Brian down to 5.
You feel like Todd just needs, it's just one more threat. It doesn't even really matter what it is to be able to tempo Brian out of this game.
Well, he's got another Hero's Downfall in his hand, and it almost seems like he can count on Brian to deal the 5th point of damage to himself, or at least not be able to cast that card that would stabilize him.
Sure.
And Brian's going to go ahead and Murderous Cut here. This is on Todd's turn. Thanks to all the cards in his graveyard, he can go ahead and delve that. He does have to take 1 point of damage, so he goes to 6. Can he stabilize? We know he has Sorin. We know his draw was another Llanowar Wastes. So 4 Pain lands in play. 3 now, but a 4th in hand.
I believe
That's a lot of damage.
Todd, I believe, with the Soul of Innistrad in hand.
But instead opting to just hold up this Hero's Downfall. And for 4 mana, it will be Sorin. Brian has to decide which way he wants to go with it. Probably makes a Vampire, and it does. Hero's Downfall takes care of the Vampire token. And Zombie takes care of Sorin. Todd will scry and just pass. So I want to agree with you that he has the Soul, opting not to cast it here.
It's probably because, I would imagine because of the charm. That he saw
He knows about Abzan Charm.
Yeah. Trying to wait for a better spot.
And Nissa World Waker, the draw for Brian. That's going to animate Llanowar Wastes into a 4/4. And Todd may be forced into playing the Soul now.
And at least it does something against Brian's next turn because he doesn't have the 3 mana available right now. But it's rough to just play this into just straight into an Abzan Charm.
Yeah, you presume you'd like it that when they kill your Soul, you at least get the activation off it.
Right. And Todd has, some time here. He's not in a huge rush to do anything. He's got a couple chump blockers, so he can wait.
Yeah, so you see there, Abzan Charm on the left. Its first mode is not destroy target creature with power 3 or greater, it's exile it. Particularly potent against cards like Soul of Innistrad.
And it's possible here, Todd is also hoping that Brian just gets an itchy trigger finger and goes ahead and just draws 2 cards. And then he can deploy the Soul.
Yeah. That's a lot to hope for. Brian is at 5, casting us the Sign in Blood mode there.
Oh, it's definitely
dangerous.
It's definitely fingers crossed, but it's not like casting the Soul does very much if it just runs into the Abzan Charm. And you still have some hope that maybe Brian will cooperate and just cast it.
Brian's going to make a second 4/4 trample, and he actually swings the pair of them, leaving open 2 points of damage. Todd will double block one with the Caryatids, so he takes 4 and drops to 9. You see, Pharika, God of Affliction was the draw for Todd. Pretty good here.
Very potent. The fact that these tokens have trample is definitely not good for Todd, but Pharika is not a horrible draw here.
Well, no, he has 7 mana, so he can cast Pharika and make 2 snakes. So he'll take a lot of damage, but he will get to be able to answer these 4/4s. So Pharika there is the play.
Yeah, he might be on chump blocking duty here with this zombie token at this stage.
Well, the danger would be that Brian animates a land, does nothing, animates another land next turn and swings 16 power trample, and I'm not sure Todd can soak up
it's also
enough points.
Another issue here is that Todd may not be able to beat the counters mode on Abzan Charm. That's another factor here. It's not just blocking the board.
Counters.
He's got to be able to block the board +2 against Brian Steve Tramplers, which is really hard to do.
Right now, he has 6 points of toughness in play. Brian could make 14 points of attacking if he Abzan Charms. Todd would go to 1, but he would be alive.
Well, he doesn't really have... Oh, yeah, he has 6 if he makes exactly 1 token. He can't make the second token because then...
Then he only has 4 points of toughness,
Right.
and then you would die. And
So
he knows about Abzan Charm as well.
Todd is just kind of squeezed here.
Not to mention the fact that Nissa can ultimate, something we don't get to see very often, but if Brian gets there, that's a pretty scary place as well.
If I'm Brian here, I just like animate a land and send it all in. Because Todd, as the board is currently constructed, is in some serious trouble, so just put him to the test as the first order of business.
All right, makes a third 4/4. Yeah. The ultimate for Nissa is at 7. Brian's going to put Todd to the test. He swings for 12. Todd will exile the Caryatid to give himself a Death Toucher, and Todd is going to have to block with everything if he wants to survive this Abzan Charm.
I assume this matchup would have been good for Todd here, but Nissa is creating all sorts of trouble. He has no removal and no pressure.
To be this kind of delve deck, I don't feel like he's doing broken enough things yet. You know, Brian's able to play fair Magic and looks like bully him around with these Planeswalkers.
Well, Todd's payouts are all on the creature front. They're all Necropolis Fiends and Sidisies. Those are what he gets to build to. And Brian just has really easy answers to those cards with his Charms and Banishing Lights and Hero's Downfall. So all the things that Todd is building towards just don't work here.
So Todd had to chump away his team. He went to 3. He was able to make a Snake there using the mana from the Caryatid. See his hand, he's got Thoughtseize and Soul of Innistrad. That's not going to be enough, and Brian Braun-Duin will take the match in 2. On the back, and this is our first Siege Rhino deck that we've seen. On first glance, I have to say I'm pretty impressed with the card.